Hello, everybody. How are you? Jem, are you with us? Hi, Muggsy.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Yay.
Yay, welcome everybody. Hi Miles, hi Muggsy.
Hi, Jem. Hi,
Hi,
Moles.
How are you
darling.
doing?
I am good.
Yeah?
Good.
I was about to cut some mango up.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
running out of time.
Well, don't
Nice,
let us
nice.
stop you. Mango's amazing. And welcome to episode 30, everybody. So it's
Yeah.
our 30th episode, which is fantastic. I'm really, really happy to have you with us today, Muggsy. And we've got a really exciting show, breakups and breakthroughs. So loads to get into. I can probably speak on your behalf, Miles, and say that love is your favourite everything, your favourite topic, subject.
Yep. You can definitely speak on my behalf with that. Yeah, it's definitely my favourite. It's my favourite thing.
Yeah, it's everything. It's all that exists. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get into some deep stuff later. But I was just sort of contemplating about how I used to think about love. And I remember saying it was the only thing that I was scared of. And now I look back on it, I think how sad, but it's actually beautiful. And yeah, I'm sure we'll go into some bits later, but love is everything. And it might hurt, but it feels amazing too. So it's, yeah, lots of different things to talk about tonight. And yeah, really happy to have you all here. So nice to see some friendly faces and yeah, welcome.
Yeah, great. And I know Muggsy's got a lot of questions because this actually came about this episode because Muggsy and I were chatting and it kind of we got onto this subject and I think it was like, this could be a really interesting one to dig into together. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward. Muggsy always has the best questions, so I'm quite looking forward to that. And yeah, just to see where we go with it. And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you feel a bit better after you listen to us. What tends to happen when you listen to a call like this, when we're talking about the three principles, there's a dropping out of the intellect, there's a dropping out of the mind into something much simpler, kind of a deeper, more peaceful feeling. So I hope that you will get that by the time the call is over. I ask you to just allow yourself to slow down over the next hour. If obviously, some of you will have other things to do, but if you can just drop those and just be here and just listen and listen like you would listen to the music or you would listen to the rain and just leave everything behind if you can. Okay. If not, listen and then maybe listen to the recording later when you can kind of just be a bit more present and relax with it. And what I want you to know that, yes, we're talking about broken hearts today, but even if you have a broken heart, everything will be okay. Everything is always okay. And it's just part of life's experience. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more on this call today and just see where it leads. Again, these calls are always very open. We have kind of a topic, but they can go anywhere. And yeah, we just, if you have any questions, please kind of raise your hand and ask, or you can DM Jem and she can come on and ask for you. So yeah, we're just going to kind of ease into heartbreak, if you can ease into heartbreak. And I'd like to say to Jem or Muggsy, what would you like to hear tonight?
Well, the first thing I would like to say to both of you is congratulations on your 30th space. It's these spaces are it is a lot more work than what people think. You spend a lot of time just putting a lot of energy out there, and you want to support people, and you want to talk to people, and you want to tell things are going to be okay, and that takes a lot of energy and a lot of guts and a lot of time, thought and thoughts that goes into it. So congratulations to both of you, really.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely. And yeah, and also we've got the we turn it into a podcast as well. And we know Spaces takes up a lot of time and we know you do a lot, but I'd say the podcast takes up even more. But we're loving it. We're really enjoying it. And we're building up a following and people that show up every week. So, but thank you for being part of it, Muggsy. You come along and you hop on some of the calls and we really appreciate you being here.
Well, I always appreciate that you guys ask me to be to help host and ask questions, because I always have stupid questions, and it just comes from the bottom of my belly, really. Like, you go through life and you think you have answers to things, and you're like, da 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 da. You walk down the road, and then something else happens, and you're like, wait a minute, I thought I had an answer for something like this a few years ago. But then again, here we are again with the same questions. So you always think, like, as you get older, you resolve things, and you've completed, in life, like, you always think that you have completed something, and that's it, right? You've done it, you've succeeded, you got the medal that you want, and then you're like, wow, that's cool. And then, a few years or a few days down the road, you're like, wait a minute, why is this thing here again? And you go through it all over again. So it's always intriguing. It's never ending, really.
Yeah, I love that you just said that, because that's what we point to here, is that there's this separate self, this ego, that is going to think it's kind of got it right, it's done it's where it needs to be, it's finally smashed it, and then suddenly you realize that you haven't, and it's on to the next thing. And for me, I talk about this a lot. It's like the carrot and the stick. You're never actually going to get to the place where you've really finalized and done life right, because life's constantly evolving. Love is constantly evolving. We have so many different forms of relationships, and we go through heartbreaks, and we go through loss, and life's constantly throwing things at us to deal with. And to think that we've got it is kind of hubris. It's the ego game. So what we point to with this understanding, that there's something just before that. There's a space before that where we exist, where really that falls away, that we see that that's part of this illusion of life, and we still play, and we still have relationships and heartbreaks, but there's less of this trying to get it right. There's less of this thinking that we've finally got to the place, because the place doesn't exist. The place is just our experience coming from thought in the moment. It's not a physical thing. It's us applying our thought system, our ideas to the world, and going, oh yeah, I've got what I want. But when we're constantly focused on that wanting outside of ourselves, we're not going in, and it's in where everything lives that we're looking for. And we still get to have a life. As I always say, it's still fun to play. I'm still probably going to get my heart broken again in my life, and experience all of the joys of that. But it's okay. It's not something to run away from. I think when you understand what we're teaching here, these three principles, and if you're new to it today, please find our podcast, the Unminding podcast. It's on all platforms, and you can go back to the beginning and find out a little bit more about what we're talking about and dive into it a little bit more. But the essence of why we teach this and why we look towards this is because it allows us that experience without so much fear, because we start to see that the world isn't a fixed place. We start to see that love isn't a fixed thing, that we're always going to experience life via us, via our conditioning and our beliefs and our thoughts. And that's easier to be up against than this fixed world that can cause us a lot of problems. And feelings aren't a permanent feature. So heartbreak isn't permanent, and we can learn so much from heartbreak. That's really what I want to point to tonight is, if we stop loving because we're scared of heartbreak, that's no life. Or for me anyway, that doesn't feel like a life, because what we're doing is we're shutting down all the juice that we can get from the love that we feel, from the loss that we may feel in a heartbreak, and all the learning of self that we can do when we look within, when we've gone through some suffering, when we've been rejected, or when we've let somebody go, because that suffering leads us to the true self. It leads us within, to this home within us that is already, it's whole. It doesn't need to be added to. It is joy, it is peace, it is love, it is well-being. It has no requirements. And if you notice in the world of personal love, look at the requirements that we bring to the table. The unconditional love is who we are. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have requirements. Of course we should. We're human beings with egos and minds, and we want things to be a certain way. And that's absolutely fine. I would have requirements in a relationship too. But when we see through them, some of the ones that maybe are unnecessary or unhelpful can fall away. And you kind of make those decisions with the person that you're with, that those are the requirements. And they're my requirements too. That's going to work really well. And you see where it goes. And if it ends, if it takes a natural ending, or if there's some heartbreak within that relationship, then it's a learning experience. We become much less afraid of the pain because we know, again, it's not permanent, it's fleeting. So for me, I like to look at it, instead of just heartbroken, it's heartbroken open. Because heartbroken open is an expansive thing. It's you're going to contract and feel the pain, but you're going to open up and see so much more about yourself and about love and about life. So I think that's a really interesting topic for us to explore, maybe this week and maybe next week, because it's a huge topic. So we'll see what we can get through today. But yeah, so Jem or Muggsy, do you have any questions or any insights? Anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I think that, I don't know, it's a bit of a hard one because I'm going through something similar-ish at the moment where, well, maybe I can ask you a question. So before, when I was sort of in relationships and in love and things, I always felt like, well, I wasn't coming from a place of a real solid foundation. Basically, I was always looking for things outside of myself. And recently I've felt love, and I have love with somebody, but sorry, the cat's running around, so you can hear her like a nutter, trying to get her outside. But something's happened and something's changed, and my whole sort of, before, what I would be doing is I'd be thinking, oh, what can I do differently? What have I done wrong? You know, what's changed? And I've looked at the situation and I've thought, actually, I couldn't have done anything in any different way. And I'm happy with the way that I've been. And I'm actually just not that happy with how the other person's been. And it's been so mind blowing because I'm not trying to fix anything anymore. And I'm not trying to change that person. And I'm just seeing things for what they are, but thinking, actually, do I want this? And it's been such a mind shift, and it's been quite tricky in the way that I feel like a bit of a bitch, to be honest, because I feel quite cold and I feel a bit sort of uninterested. But it's so different from what I felt before, and it must be from sort of working with the 3 principles, because there's been no ice cream, there's been no tears, there's been no sat in bed, and it's just been really odd, but it's been really good. But it's very new and different. And I know you know what I mean, but it's such a change. And some of the feelings that I felt instantly were so not in parallel or in line with what was going on. And so I caught myself really quickly and I thought, hey, this is not you, and this is not how you need to feel. And it was so easy just to see things for what they were, instead of me looking at things from a victim standpoint of, you know, what's wrong with me? What have I done? Why aren't I lovable? It was like, no, actually, you know, he just might be a bit of an asshole. It was just really plain and simple and really great, but I feel very different.
That's so interesting, because it's just such a healthier place to be, because your ego's not grabbing the situation and the experience and making it all about you. Because even when we're down on ourselves, that's just as much the ego as the people that are kind of flashy and like, oh, look at me. The poor me is the ego as much as the look at me. So I think for you to see that is for you to suddenly go, well, actually, I'm coming in more into my logic that this isn't acceptable behavior to me. This isn't the relationship that I want to be in, as it is. And actually I can stand my ground now. I don't have to be this kind of victim. So it's so powerful because this understanding gets us to really begin to understand who we are. And we're not the victim. you know, and we're not the arsehole either. I mean, occasionally we can be, but generally, you know, we're going to stand our ground. We're going to be who we're meant to be. We're going to see it clearly now in a relationship, even when you've looked in this direction for many years, like I have. If you're in a relationship, you can still get caught up in insecurity, but you seem to come back really quickly into logic. You go into the insecurity, you may project it, you may have some upset, but quite quickly you'll come into, hold on, this is thinking, this is me, this is nothing to do with the other person. I've just got really caught up in my own head. And you just come back into your well-being. And I think that's what you've done, Jem. And I'm really proud of you that you've done it, because, you know, I know what it was like before, and I know what a difficult place that can be to be in when you really just blame yourself and beat yourself up about a relationship not working out. So, yeah, well done you, really.
Thank you. And I said, oh, I'm not going to talk about it. We're 16 minutes in. But no, it's so amazing to, well, for me personally, I always feel like I'm coming from a really sort of selfish point of view when I explain these things, because I can only really give personal experiences. But yeah, to know that everything that happens, it's going to happen anyway, and I don't have to take it on, and I never had to. It really allows you to have relationships with people that are really just truthful, and it's really freeing. So yeah, I've learned a hell of a lot in the last couple of weeks, and yeah, I just think it gives you a really good foundation to, well, you can't be anything but yourself. And I found myself surprising myself and shocking myself quite a lot in a good way. And I think for the first time, I feel like a real adult, although I still have fun and everything. I'm not, my life is in an order that I would be proud of. I tweeted the other day saying, you know, what would the 20-year-old self say about you now? And I was laughing because I was listening to like classical jazz, sewing some cat toys. And it's just, I would have never imagined I would be so chilled out on a Friday with a cat. And it's like everything can turn on its head, and just be completely different from what you ever imagined in a really, really good way. So yeah, that's my 2 Satoshis about breakups and breakthroughs. And mine's been more of a breakthrough, not a breakup, but it's wonderful. It really is. And you get to see the light and the love in everything.
Yeah, it's it's beautiful, and that is a breakthrough. So this is why we put them together, you know, breakups and breakthroughs, because we do get the breakthroughs when we're going through something, when we're suffering, when we're going through a time that may be difficult, you know, especially in a relationship breakdown. We can see a lot about ourselves. I've learned, so I've probably had 2 relationships in the last 4 years maybe, and you know, both didn't end very, very well. And I would say that both have just taught me so much. You know, one I wrote a book out of, which is, I'll probably read a couple of things from today. But it was so interesting. It was as if I got into a relationship around 4 years ago, and I would say it was the first one I'd had since I'd been around the 3 principles. And what was really interesting to me was I'd been around the principles probably for about 6 years at that point. So I thought I kind of, like Muggsy said, when you think you've got it, I was in that place where like, well, I've got it. You know, I can see this really clearly. And actually getting into a relationship that was long distance and didn't work out very well, and the triggers, it was like, oh my God, there was so much came up that I thought that I thought I dealt with, that I thought, you know, didn't really exist in my conditioning anymore, because I'd seen a lot around kind of understanding who I was and my insights and being a teacher of the 3 principles. And I was knocked on my arse by it. What happened was, it was quite a short thing, but this most beautiful book, I believe, came out of it. And it was just, for me, it was a processing. It felt like the whole experience allowed me to see even more deeply these principles, because I'd go into this contraction of thought and upset and this breakdown, and then it would not be for very long, and suddenly I'd come out of it and I'd have like this new vision, this like a clearer mind, a clearer sight. It was, and I'd learned so much about relationships and about myself, that hubris of thinking I knew it kind of fell away, and it was kind of really humbling to see it differently. And then again, I went into another long distance relationship, which I'm still friends with that person, but that's been different. Allowed me to really again see myself, but not quite as dramatically, not quite as intensely, and just to be really honest. That was something I noticed that I didn't have in my relationships when I was younger, and I've been married, but it was like there was a lack of honesty. It wasn't okay for me to say how I really felt. And I think what this understanding gives you, it's really okay to say how you feel. Really okay to just be you. Really to say, this is how I feel. This is what I want. If that other person is going to meet you there, great. If they're not going to meet you there, goodbye. It may take a while for you to get to that goodbye, but when you do it comes back to this empowerment of understanding yourself, of knowing who you really are, and knowing that you're always okay. Something I've seen lately is that, God, I'm okay, whatever. If they're in my life, if they're not in my life, I'm fine. Now, for me, because of I think this understanding and what I've seen over the years, is I still have great love for those people. Now that love hasn't gone, but my requirements and the relationships have definitely changed. And I think that's something that we all can experience, instead of looking at heartbreak as something that's done to us and personal and I'm going to shut down. If we can look at it as this heartbreaking open of going within, of seeing more about who we are, this longing, instead of it being a longing for a person, what it's actually a longing for is the depth of us, to see that who we are before the character, who we are before the personality, to touch the space within us that is love. And what I do with clients, and what I found so interesting when I saw it for myself, was we project all that love that is us onto a person. We make it look like it's them, and we make it look like that love doesn't exist without them. And that's just not true. The love is there whether they're there or whether they are there or not. That's us making it up. We're doing the projection. They're not projecting love into us and making us feel it. Those feelings are all us. So suddenly we can see it differently. Suddenly we can see, yes, I want to have a relationship with this person, or yes, that relationship is over, but that love is still who I am. And people get to see it when I say, well, think of that person in your past that you loved, that you thought you couldn't live without, that then in the future you felt that again for someone else, maybe slightly differently, but you love that other person. Now, that shows you that if this love is kind of transferable from different people, it shows you that the love was you all along. And that's what we're pointing to here. It's like waking up to who you are, waking up to the love that you are. Yeah, coming home. So the longing is for you to come home, not for you to project out. Go outside or go inside. Outside is never ever going to contain everything that you want, but inside will. And the paradox is, when you go inside and you understand this, and then you have a relationship, especially with somebody else that can understand this, then that is an incredibly healthy relationship, because you're not constantly projecting your well-being and happiness onto the other person. You're seeing that it can only come from you, because then you're saying, oh, I'm feeling like shit, and I'm saying to them, or thinking it's them, or like they're not making me feel good anymore. No, you're not making you feel good. Like, wake up to that. If the relationship's basically healthy and okay, that's you in a low state of mind. If the relationship isn't good and it's abusive, or you're in a relationship where that person isn't meeting those requirements that you've set out, then you can move on, or you can have conversations and communications around that. But actually, it's seeing. It's the teaching and the seeing and the knowing and the waking up of you that's important. Yeah, from there, you can be a really, really great partner. When you're projecting your insecurity onto somebody, you're not being a great partner. That's codependency. That's a tough relationship. That relationship's going to have a lot of obstacles. So yeah, it's a fascinating area. See, the three areas where we get really triggered: money, relationships. There's another. Oh, and physical health. They're the three. They're where you really, really get caught up in this separation, in being this separate self and this identity. But what that can do is it can lead to a going within and a dissolving of the identity and coming closer to your true nature. And when you touch that space, I tell you, it's like, wow, all these insecurities kind of fall away. Again, they appear from time to time, but they're just around so much less. You're so much more comfortable in your own skin, so much more knowing of who you are. You begin to see that there isn't an objective, fixed and static person out there. There isn't a fixed, static circumstance out there. There is just an experience that changes as your thinking changes. So then it becomes that fluidity of experience, that fluidity of feeling. You can wake up and not like your partner in the morning and be completely in love with them by the afternoon. You don't have to destroy a relationship because you're not feeling good. And I think, again, we're talking about breakups, but actually what the principles can lead to is really healthy relationships. And I think that's something that, we all really would love. I'd love to be in a really good, healthy relationship with somebody that saw this too. And, you can really learn so much about yourself and each other through that, because you're not running away every time it gets bad. You're going through those bad times because you see it's a projection of thought and you work through it and you come out of the other side. And on the other side of that is a deeper love. And again, I'm not saying all relationships need to work out. Clearly they don't. But if they have the potential to, then this is going to really, really add so much to a relationship. So much love, so much goodness, so much help, so much health, so much well-being. So that's what we're pointing to here. So, Mugsy or Gem?
Man, love sucks. Love is confusing. Love is everything. Love is welcoming. Love is beautiful. Love hurts. Love is encompassing. Love is intriguing. Love is anything that you want to say love is, it's there. But it's like I feel like we are confused with what love is and what is a relationship. And all of that needs to intertwine for it to last. Like, can love really last? What is love? What is lust? Like, as you get older, at least for me, you begin to learn to distinguish between all the differences. And that's when I feel that you can settle your mind and your heart. And there's like that physical feeling, there's also that mental feeling, and there's also, it's just, when you first feel that love for someone, it just takes over. And I think we just have to we have to know what the difference is when all that energy of what love is to you takes over, and what it becomes when it's just lust, and you don't seem to see anything else.
So, do you have a question?
Hell no. I mean, I don't have questions because I don't know what the answers is to any of the questions. I just feel that everybody goes through all these feelings, and it's all different, and it's all the same at the same time. But like, we all live through these relationships, and we all learn from it, but at the same time we don't because when you start over with someone or some entity or whatever it is, you go through that whole thing again, and you start to question certain things, what you've
Ah,
got, like certain feelings, what you've gone through in the
yeah,
past, right?
yeah,
Then you're like, oh wait, I'm on the same doorstep as the last time. Is this going to be different? So do you make it different, or is it going to be different because it is different? So,
yeah, yeah. What I'm hearing here is what I've how do I explain it? It to me, what you're not seeing is every relationship is a reflection of you. So if you, after one relationship, haven't gone within and reflected on why that relationship didn't work, and the things within you that needed to be observed, needed to be seen, needed to kind of change, then you're going to go straight into a very similar relationship, of course. But when as you change, as you evolve, then the relationships will change. And that can only happen by this self-inquiry. It's not going to happen by listening to thought saying the same bullshit over and over again, because thought is full of shit. Where it's going to come is where you start to explore who you are before this thought system, but you begin to see that this character is made up. You begin to see that the past isn't real. You begin to see all of these things of this experience that looks so real as an illusion. And as that illusion is seen and these beliefs tend to dissolve and fall away, you show up differently and you can do things differently. But it's never, ever the other person. The other person is there as a reflection of you. And maybe, I'm not saying they're the same as you, if they've treated you badly and you've been nice or whatever it may be. But what I'm saying is it's within you that something needs to be seen for that experience to change. Because without that, we're just on the hamster wheel of repetitive thought, repetitive beliefs, repetitive behaviors. Because what you're then doing is you're not seeing who you are. Again, it's like Jem just spoke, and when she spoke about how she's different in this relationship, and she said, actually, that isn't acceptable to me, I don't want to carry on with that. That's very different for Jem. What's happened with me in the last relationship was I've been through the ups and downs, but I've seen so much and I've understood more about myself and got to a point where actually that isn't acceptable for me. So we tend to have more knowing, we tend to have more insight, and that insight leads to better relationships. And I don't believe for a second that you don't know what the difference between love and lust is. We know that, we know what that is. And love is its own feeling. It's enriching. Now, again, when I talked about the requirements of relationship, that's the different thing. That's the personal. Okay, that's the character. So we have unconditional love. I love everybody on this call, absolutely unconditionally. Okay. Now, if I was in a relationship with anybody on this call, there would be certain things that I would like within that relationship, like monogamy, or whatever it would be that would be suitable for me in a relationship, and the other person would have to agree with that. And then if those requirements weren't met, that would be when the relationship would kind of end. So what you have to understand is that there's these two sides of this relationship thing that we're talking about, and the basic fundamental unconditional love, and on top of that, the requirements that we may have. And for me, it would be, I'd need a mental connection, I would need a spiritual connection, and I'd need a physical connection. So my bar's really low, obviously. So it's like, but what do you need? What are you looking for? It's again that compatibility. So we can fall in love and it not work out because the compatibility isn't there and the requirements aren't met. But what if you can work through all of those things and be with someone and all of those things are met? What then? You're still going to have stuff come up because it's a relationship and it's where you learn about each other. But, you can go in differently because suddenly you see when you're projecting and when they're projecting, and you don't take it personally. You see it differently. It's it's one of the most important things is that we stay true to ourselves. For me, it's that if I can stay true to what I really want and say no to something, even though it's hard to let it go, that to me is okay. You know, I'm true to the separate self, and I'm true to my true self, because I'm saying this is what I want. You know, I have a commitment to what I want, not a commitment to another person if you're not in a relationship, but you can have a commitment to what you want from the world, what you want from a relationship, and that will change things. You know, I'd rather love a gazillion times and have my heart broken than have an empty heart, than not even try. You know, for me, that's so important. It's I want the feeling. In fact, I've been dealing with a couple of people with heartbreak recently, and there's almost a little bit of jealousy. I know that sounds crazy, but that feeling, that intensity, that kind of the rawness of going through a breakup, you know, there's something in that really, really touches who we really are. It can really call us home, and I think we can have so many insights from that. So yeah, I think, to answer your question, Muggsy, it's like, you know the difference. It is confusing. All things are love, but like, fuck, go live, go experience those things. Don't hide from them. Like, see where life takes you. Be open and don't be scared of the pain, because it's transitory. It's gone. It comes and it goes. There's an absolutely lovely quote that I wrote down about, where is it? Hold on. Sadness flies away on the wings of time. And I thought that was beautiful, because it does. You know, it leaves us, and suddenly we have fresh eyes to see ourselves, to see life, to see the world, to see love in a new way. And I think it's just remembering that. So, Muggsy, back to you.
Oh God. I think Rain had her hand up. But what happens when you're so numb to relationships? And do you realize how numb you get? Like, you know, as the more relationship you're in and you break it, you know, get in, you break up, you get in, you break up, and then do you become numb? And can you get out of that?
Yes, you can definitely become numb. Like, absolutely. Can you get out of that? Absolutely. You know, it's when you see that numbness and you want to break out of it, when, you know, you'll have that moment of clarity, that moment of insight, and you will look towards, I guess, it would be just looking again within. It would be okay. It's almost like a decision, actually. That's, I'm thinking about it, it'd be a decision. Okay, I feel this numbness. I don't want to feel this anymore. I want to live again. And it's almost as we, again, back to that commitment, when we decide, when we commit to life, when we commit to love, and all of the experiences that it contains, you know, we're open. And that doesn't mean to say you go straight out and have a relationship with someone, but, you know, you become open to life, open to the experiences that it offers, because that numbness is just your fear. You know, the numbness is the fear taking hold and setting in, because it's to the separate self, it doesn't want to feel anymore. And I do understand that. So uh, for me, my experience of that would be after my breakdown, and when I came out of that and I felt numb, it was absolutely amazing. I was like so happy to feel numb, because it made me, just after all that feeling that I had, it just made me feel peaceful. Now, I didn't want to stay like that forever, though. And as much as I enjoyed it at the time, there was a point where I was coming back to life again, and feelings again, and experiences again, and opening up, and in a different way, experiencing feelings but not being scared of them. Whereas I was really frightened of my own feelings when I was in a bad place. You know, they seemed really scary to me, and now my feelings aren't as scary. You know, they can still take hold and have power and impact, but they don't scare me anymore. You know, my view, my personal view is, we're not here for long. I want to have as much of juicy experiences of life as I possibly can. I want to be open to love. I'm open to heartbreak. I'm open to all of it because, before I know it, I won't be here anymore. So why limit this human experience? Because we are here to be human. We're here to have these feelings. We're here to have these experiences. So let's just have them. Let's just say, fuck it. I'm going to live. Because for me, that contains so much more than the shutting down and the numbness and the closing that we can do. But I understand that we can get to that point. But there has to be new thought and insight where you go, actually, I don't want this anymore. This isn't, I'm not getting all I can out of life by being closed off. And from that space, you can begin to open up again. And that's when people are ready. If it's you, when you're ready. It's best not to force these things, but to observe the self and see what you're doing and see how you're reacting to your past experiences, seeing that those past experiences aren't there anymore, that you're creating them in your mind and creating a fear and creating a block to living, and then just kind of doing whatever you need to do to get through that.
Yeah.
You don't sound too enthusiastic, Muggsy.
No, like look, everything you say is always beautiful, and it hits every gear. But I look, and these questions or these scenarios are not just about me or
I
my.
know.
It's just what I see too, and there's some great relationships that we all witness in our lives, and then there are some that are not so good, and you always wonder um, why and how a couple is staying together. You see some abuses mentally, physically out there, and you always wonder how that even works. Where is that love that bonds them together to the point where they're both going down the drain together? So there's so many different variations of relationships and love, and it's from experience and then from a viewpoint, it does get really overwhelming when you do think about it. It's not like I don't think it's not like one of those things that you run around, you walk around, you're always thinking about relationships. You think about them when you go through them. You think about them when someone brings it up to you or talk about it with you, etc. So when you're in that position where when you're in a relationship where it's super and it's beautiful, it's great, nothing else you can see, you can pass that on that beautiful thing, but then when you do go through a breakup and it's painful, you pass that on too. So it's always all over the place.
Well, it's all life, it's
Yeah.
like it's life thing, as I always say. We can't have the ups without the downs. I can't see that that's possible. It's you're going to get all the experiences that you're meant to have in the experience of being human and being alive. What I found interesting in what you said just then was that when I think about relationships, it can be overwhelming, and that's thought. You don't have the experience of a relationship. If you're thinking about a relationship, you're in thought. So a relationship and experience can be very different from the one that we think about. So it's just seeing that our minds can make something much harder, much bigger, much worse than it actually is. Because actually being in it and seeing what it's like and going with the flow and being open is actually easy. Putting up our barriers and getting stuck in our heads, as much as that looks the easy option, isn't, because we're constantly in resistance. And I'm not saying you are, but we can all do this. This is kind of universal. And there's a absolutely beautiful Rumi quote, and it is, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." And I know we're talking about personal relationships here and, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, but that, you know, love is everywhere. You know, it's in all our relationships, or it should be in all our relationships. So, you know, it's just observing that and seeing how easy it is to love some people, how easy some of your relationships are, and how difficult others are. You know, and the difficult ones, the thing that's getting in the way is thought, whether it's yours or theirs. And then if we can see that, we can start to repair these relationships, because again, we're coming to the impersonal. Okay, it just shifts it a little bit. I'm just going to go to Jem, and then I'm going to go to Rain. Jem?
Wow, I've been going through lots of different thoughts as I've been listening to you two speak. I suppose the first question is, what are you doing tomorrow night, and would you like to go for dinner?
Who, me or Mugsy?
You. And if the answer is no, I think I'm going to go for celibacy. No, it is incredible, and I don't really have any questions. I'm just kind of musing in my own thoughts over what I've sort of been going through over the last couple of weeks, and it's just to be more of a listener and hear you two today has been amazing, because I'm just learning a lot. So I don't really have any questions. Just thank you, and the conversation's great. And I know Rain is here as well, who is always full of love. So Rain, if you've got anything that you want to say, and also anybody else, if you'd like to come up and be lovely too, that would be wonderful.
I didn't really have questions other than just thank you for this topic. I'm passionate about this topic and how to handle it, and you know, the journey of figuring out. I really feel that all societies, it seems, set us up to fail in this area. I don't know about you guys, but when I was little, I remember watching what love meant, and it meant like, you know, knight in shining armors. It meant, you know, happily ever after. It never talked about the ups and the downs. It never talked about the reality of side of things. And so I think I went into the love avenue, the love road, whatever, with this misconception that, you know, if I choose someone and they choose me, then that means forever, and they're mine and I own them. And I don't know if anybody else has that, but that's the way I kind of operated. I was like, oh, in happily ever after, Jem is now mine if we commit to each other, and I own her, and we're going to live happily ever after. And I genuinely believed that. And then I would discover that either I was an asshole or they were an asshole, or we were both assholes due to incompatibility and all of these things that nobody explains to you. You know, suddenly you're arguing over what fork to use, and you're sitting there going, how is it? What? This is not what was in the books. This was not what was in all those movies and cartoons and everything. What I have learned along the way, though, is much of what Mal's saying is basically I had it all wrong, and my picker was shit. I picked people who were emotionally unavailable. I've caught myself doing this push-pull. Do people do this where I pull them in, and then the moment I have them, I'm like, yeah, fuck off. Goodbye. You're boring me now. Then I discovered I was obsessed with people being obsessed with me. I don't know if you guys went through that stage, but I was like, I always had to have somebody on the hook. Like, it just made me feel good. It made me feel like I was worth something to have somebody have a crush on me or be intrigued or whatever. And so I discovered all of these things that I do that I don't know where they came from. And like Mal says, I don't really dwell on where they came from. I really dwell on, are they correct? Are they accurate? Does it help me today? Is it making me pick people that might not be compatible? And I really started to work on those types of things, and also to recognize and realize that the partner I have today, I chose very differently. I chose based on an actual list of what I'm looking for. And then, like Mal said, and if that list wasn't compatible, I ended things. And rather than dragging it on and on and on and on and on, which is what I used to do. I used to stay in harmful situations way too long. So I had to go ahead.
Was butt on that list?
Yes, but it's on a sub list. That's not a deal breaker list. if you get a good ass, that's great. That's a bonus. That's on the bonus list. You actually get along. Do you have the same things in common? Do you have the same morals? Do you want the same things? If you're more open in relationships and you want an open relationship, are they willing to be open? If you want monogamy, are they willing to be monogamous? These things seem really basic and but a lot of us fuck up. We get in that 6-month chemistry change where your brain goes crazy and we're like, oh, monogamy doesn't matter. I'll do whatever you want. The sex is great. So I literally had to consciously decide, even when I knew my brain chemistry was all screwed up because of that love stage, right? That whole lust, love, which is it, da 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 da. I had to stay really logical, and I had to have deep conversations, and I had to still call myself out and still call that person out and have these chats. And then also the last part I will say is I had to finally release that person, that they're not mine. And that if they choose to stay beside me for today, for 10 years, for 100 years, that's lovely. But each one of us has the right to walk away and say, this is no longer working for us. And I think that set me free. And if that helps anyone, I really believe that set me free. That I really believe that I'll be shattered, but she has the right to walk out the door. She has that right. I genuinely believe that now, rather than I own her and she's mine and she just needs to change to who I want her to be. So that's my 2 cents.
I have a question for all three of you. Have you gotten better knowing when the time of the relationship is ending? Like
Yes,
you know that
absolutely.
it's better off?
But most of the time I still want it to go on because I've been programmed to believe in happily ever after. And that if I just change and if I just bend over and if I push or I control or I do something, it will get better. And that is a mistake. And I've learned to not make that mistake quicker and quicker. And I think that's what Jem was originally talking about. She's finally realizing that it's almost, it makes love sound so cut and dry, but it actually gives you the best chance at actually finding that deep love that is just based on mutual respect.
Yeah, I was. Oh, Jem, can you mute? I would say that for me, I probably held on far too long in the last experience that I've had, but I've learnt so much from that. And I really love what Rain said, because this is something that I've really come to understand, that if that person doesn't want to be in a relationship with me, which really fundamentally they didn't, like language and behaviour are two different things. The language was there, but their behaviour wasn't. Now, if fundamentally that when I eventually came to that understanding and I really saw it, that I'm completely okay with that person not wanting me. They have the complete right to not want to be with me, and that doesn't make them wrong in any way. That's just where they are and how they see the world and how they see me. And that's completely 100% perfect for them. Now that's new for me. That's new. It's like, it's not a mistake. It was a choice. And I have to accept that choice. And I have to not live in any kind of illusion. I have to live in the reality of that and move on. It has taken me a while to get there, I have to say. You know, it hasn't been as quick as I'd like to have seen it, but I've seen it, and it's been so empowering to finally accept that and see that, and then say, actually, I know what I want, and I'm not going to discount what I want because of that person isn't able to give it to me. I'm just going to wait for the thing that I want, and when that comes along, that's going to be 100 times better than that could ever have been, because I was dumbing down myself in order to have that experience, and that really wasn't good enough for me.
I've done the exact same thing, Malls. You're not alone. I didn't get to this place by eating ice cream and living happily. I got to this place through crying myself to sleep, wondering why they didn't love me. Why am I not good? You know, just a natural way of finally coming out the other side and realizing that, like, I can't hold a person hostage, and I should always understand that they have a right to leave. And starting from that place made my love for them fundamentally different. The whole energy was different when that person can feel from the core of me that they are allowed to be, and that I am allowed to be, and let's give this a shot. And it changed fundamentally every single conversation, every smile, because it came from a place of no pressure. And that was the difference for me.
Yeah, I love that, Rain. I really love it. And yet again, it's something that I've seen recently. And, you know, for me, again, more learning about me, more understanding of who I am not, more seeing more deeply, more insight. And it's a really amazing thing. And if anything, the gifts that I've got from this failed relationship are huge, you know, and then if and when someone else comes along, then I've learned so much more. I'll be so much, you know, I'll be in a better place to be in a good relationship because I've seen through certain things, I've understood certain things, and as I said, I hadn't been in a relationship for a very, very long time, especially at the beginning part of my understanding of the principles. So there was so much to learn that I didn't realise I had to learn when I came into them. And I do have a poem from my book that I'd like to read, and then I'm going to hand back to Jem. And my book was called Pourings of Love, and it was written out of heartache. It's a poetry, it's a love story told in poetry. And it's today I learned that gifts do not always come in pretty packages with bows and ribbons full of sweet things and heaven scents. Sometimes they come in the form of people that break your heart. But these people may have shown you how to love again and to touch the tender places that have remained hidden for so long. When these precious gifts come, please cry your beautiful heart out. Lament in the sadness that you feel, but know that you have been broken open to love more deeply and to feel more tenderly, and to know that love is not something that you receive, but it is what you are made of. And may you always remember that you can only be and will always be enough.
That was beautiful, and the book is beautiful. I've put a link up the top. It was a good couple of years ago now, but yeah, I picked it up the other day and I lent it to one of my friends to read, and it is very, very, very emotional and beautiful. So I'd recommend anyone to check it out. But to go back to for the question, Muggsy, thank you. For me, it's only really been the last couple of months that I've started to really realize what relationships are good and what relationships are not. And it's not romantically, it's more sort of friends-wise as well. I've been looking around thinking, actually, the things that, like, so I've stopped drinking sort of permanently. I don't drink at all anymore. And a lot of my friendships were based on going to the pub. So that doesn't really work out anymore. And it's just been a real sort of overhaul. So yeah, for me, it's been quite a new experience, but I know that I can never go back to unseeing these things. So for me, it's like I'm just starting my journey. Rain, I wanted to say thank you, because the way that you explain things is incredible. You get straight to the point, and I think that a lot of people would have done exactly what you've done. I know I've done it myself, but a lot of people wouldn't admit it. So I think when people hear the way that you've explained it, I think you've done so much good in what you've just explained. And Miles, I never pick you up on anything. I love you so much, but that I know enough, but I know that last relationship you had was not, although we might see it as a failed relationship, you've grown and love, and you just turned into more of a loving badass bitch, really. So it was the moment I heard you say that it was a failed relationship, I thought, no, it wasn't. It wasn't, because it was perfect, and it is perfect. And I'm going to mute myself because for some reason I give an echo, but I love you all and I'm still here.
I love you, darling. You're right. Actually, that wording wasn't correct. A failed relationship. It just didn't work out. And again, as you know, I've learned so much from it, and everything that I learn, I get to share. You know, what a privilege. I learn something, I share it with you guys, I share it with my clients, I can write about it, and just hopefully, help people to feel and to live and to not be scared of it. Because I know when I was in my bad place, I was terrified of life. I was terrified of my feelings. And to come back into life and to have this experience through these 3 principles and knowing more of who I am, and to really have that freedom of mind and that freedom in life to just live, just to allow experience to be, to see that I'm always going to be experiencing my mind and not actually the world. It's all me, it's thought, and how I'm seeing it is how it's going to look, and that can change on a sixpence. It can look one way one minute and another a completely different way another. Nothing's set. So heartbreak isn't a fixed thing. If anything, it's to avoid it your whole life would be incredibly sad. It's actually, I had coffee with, there's another 3 principles teacher where I live. We're the only 2. And he's a really good friend of mine. And we went for coffee earlier. And I know he's had his fair share of heartbreak too. And I said, I'm doing a talk tonight on breakups and heartbreak. And what would you say about it? And he just said that everybody should go through it. That there's such richness to be found within it. And avoiding it is kind of missing out on something, a real kind of juice, a real richness in life. And as I said, that's what I felt when I've been listening to these people talk about their heartbreaks recently, is that, wow, they're really feeling the rawness of the experience of life. And even though I wouldn't kind of choose it, there was just this little bit of jealousy, this little bit of feeling of, oh, yeah, I remember that. That got me to write a book. That got me to really kind of feel again, really open up again. And that's what we have to remember. It's that open up, keep opening, keep exposing yourself to life. Don't hide away from it. There's actually, I'm going to read something else. It's from a guy called Jeff Foster, and I love his writing. And he says, make mistakes, fuck everything up, but live anyway. Taste failure, taste success. See how in the end they taste the same. The taste of you, the taste of life, the taste of the love that you always sought. Live, make mistakes, fuck everything up. Say the right thing, say the wrong thing. Shake, sweat, let your heart pound. Find your edge and never abandon it. They will call you names, an idiot, afraid, deluded, mad. So taste the rejection, taste disapproval, taste the absence of any taste, but hold yourself close and breathe, and live, and love. Break open to love, make mistakes, fuck everything up, fall to the ground, laughing, crying. Love is always going to hold you.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Jem?
I was just taking in the poem, actually. Sometimes it's nice when because it's never an awkward silence. But yeah, that is very beautiful. And it just, having these little reminders, I've got like quite a few poems now that whether you've read them or I've found them, that I can just read it and it's like pressing the reset button, because you're just reminded instantly that everything has always been okay. It's only life that gets us off track. How annoying, But then when we remember, it's like, So yeah, anytime you read something like that, I go off into my own world for a second. So you're never going to get an instant reply. But yeah, it was really, really beautiful. We have got another speaker up here as well. And you've been very patient, Yogi. So Yogi, if you'd like to unmute yourself and speak, then you're more than welcome. And thanks, Moz. I loved the poem very much, and I'm going to remember it this time.
Oh, thank you. I've just been listening to all the beautiful things that were being said, but seeing this as a space about romantic partners, I was wondering how do you see the self, or how do you see the other? Actually, that's the question. How do you see the self compared to the other? Moles.
That's a great question. And again, there will be two answers, because there's how I see it as the separate human moles, and then there's how I see it when I fall out of that and I understand that there is no separation. So there will be the appearance of another, of course, because we're having the human experience. But at the deepest truth of who we are, there isn't another. And that romantic partners, everyone on this call, there's a reflection of the self in a different form, because we're all this one consciousness, this one shared being taking form as this illusion of a separation. And that's the depth of this understanding when we point to, and when you work with somebody in this way, you start with thought, you start with the humanness, but you take them down to this road of oneness, to where you end up at this non-duality. You end up somewhere where you just see that everything is one, that there's this one formless energy that's created all this separation, all this form, and all of it is made of the same thing, and all of it is made of love. So how you see the other depends on where you are. Am I in my personality, in my separate self, in my ego? Then there'll be the appearance of another that may be annoying, that I may love, that may be making me laugh, that I'll be having experiences with. But if I'm seeing deeper than that, if I'm in the experience where I've fallen out of the self and I'm touching something deeper, there will just be presence. There'll just be them and me, but there'll be oneness. There won't be any separation. And when you touch that space with somebody, then that's a very, very beautiful experience, because you can just both fall out of your minds and just sit in bliss. And that's something that, and again, that doesn't have to be a romantic partner. I've experienced this with my friends. I've experienced it with clients, in groups, with, all sorts of people, where you're just having a conversation and suddenly you fall away. And in that falling away, there's just, there isn't a distinction. There's just this luminous energy that has created all of us, that we just feel. There aren't even words that do it justice. It's like Michael Neal, one of the teachers of the Three Principles, says it's like pointing to fire with an icicle. The closer you get, the less you have to point with. So when we start touching this place of no separation, of oneness, it's words become icky. It's like, how do you really talk and explain that? Because there's a nothingness there. There's a nothingness that contains all things. And the mind goes, what? But that's quite a good thing, because when the mind kind of falls away and gets confused again, we touch a deeper space. And that deeper space is what we're pointing to here, where when we touch it, when we see it, when we have a glimpse of it, that these fundamental changes in who we are begin to happen, because we're going into an area where we see the illusion of this separation, and in the seeing of the illusion and the touching of something deeper, the beliefs that aren't helpful, the things that we have that keep us caught up, tend to dissolve. And in that dissolving, life gets easier, relationships get easier, we begin to have more grace in life. And I found that for myself. I know Jem has, I know my clients do, because it's not what we're looking for. Can't be found in the mind, it can't be found in the world. It's found in the touching of that space. We're all looking for one thing. It can look like a million different things. Whatever it is that you think you're looking for, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for what we're pointing to here. You're looking for that home within you, that place that contains everything. Like nothing is missing from there. It's all the things, all the feelings, all the peace, all the love. It's just right there underneath the thinking that you believe is true. That's why the power of this conversation is seeing thought. Because when we begin to observe thought and see its unreal nature, it takes us to that place. It points to that place. And as I said, that place is the richness. That place is the diamond in your pocket that you haven't seen, that was there the whole time. And that doesn't mean to say when we find that place that we stop experiencing the world and being human. We come more into that. We become happier to experience the humanness. We become more fully immersed in life. Back to what I was saying earlier, we're not scared of living anymore. So I love that question because it just pointed to home. It pointed to what we're really, really looking at here is that before this idea of separation, before this illusion of self, this character, this energy that we appear as a separation, it's like before that, that's it. That's all of the feelings.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for asking such a wonderful question.
Yeah, I have to think about a story that someone told me about if you spend enough time with someone, with some individual, the chances are very high that you end up loving them, right?
Yeah, I tell you what I love about that is that we all have judgments, we come and we meet another and we can have judgment, or we might not want to listen to them, or whatever's going on in your head in that moment you'll project onto that person, or maybe you may not find them interesting. But when you get to really know someone, everyone's got their story, everybody's got their heartbreak, everybody's got an area where we connect, and it's in that connection that you end up loving someone. So I can do a group. So if I do an input, actually online as well, when I do groups, everyone falls in love with each other because there's a dropping out of the identity. At first there's a sharing of the stories and there's a sharing of the pain, and people connect through that. And then through that pain, they come to a place of dropping away. They come to a place of before the identity, to this home that we're talking about. And when they all connect in that place, it's just love. So that's a beautiful point and absolutely right. I would believe that to be true.
Thanks, Mols. Thank
You're
you very much.
welcome. Thank you for coming up and speaking. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You are all welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody that's here on the call. There's been a lot of you tonight, and yeah, it's been really wonderful to share. I think we're going to finish up. We said an hour and a quarter. So I will hand over one more time to Muggsy and then over to Jem. So Muggsy, how you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I think we could talk about this topic for days and days and days. We can all sit here and have stories and have all the answers and the questions all at the same time. And I would love for you to do a second part to this, because I think because to me, love is not just about boyfriend, girlfriend, 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 boyfriend, boyfriend. It's all encompassing, and it bleeds into not only your personal relationship with people that you are with now, including fathers, son, daughters, whatever. It encompasses how you love the world and how you love your setting and surrounding and whatever space you are in, whether you're in the real space or the social media space. So it does affect all of that, and I would love to I would love for us to have a second and third part to this.
Absolutely. Let's do it next week. How about that? Part 2 next week. Fantastic. Don't have to think of a topic as well.
So double love. Okay, fantastic. I was thinking about you, Mugsy. I was thinking, did you fall in love with your mango as we were sort of going through this? And this has been one of the most lovely, easy going spaces. I feel like it hasn't even started, and we've been here for an hour and 20 minutes. Miles, I'm sure you feel a bit differently. But yeah, we could talk about this forever. So I think definitely let's do this again next week. Mugsy, who knows, you might fall in love and find the person of your dreams, or it's just so interesting to open up to all the new possibilities. And when you were speaking about how love encompasses everything, I feel a bit silly saying this, but I went for a walk a couple of days ago, and I was walking over a bridge, and I walk over it all the time, but for the first time ever I noticed this huge rose bush, and I don't know how I've never seen it before. And I know it's definitely been there for a long time because it's big and it's old, but it's like being able to see things that were unavailable to me. When people talk about living in different dimensions and being able to see different things, we always, we could imagine aliens and all sorts of things. But that was a real moment prover that I wasn't able to see some of the beautiful things that were always around me. And now I can never not see the rose bush, but it's almost like a game sometimes that things are invisible for you because you're not maybe vibrating on a level to allow them. Who knows? That's a whole nother subject. But I've found that love has allowed me to see more beautiful things, definitely.
Love that, Gem.
I loved it too. I cried on the bridge and everyone thought I was mental. No, I did. I got a tear in my eye and I stopped and I looked at it and I was like, bloody hell. Because, yeah, you do go around just seeing the world sometimes through very blinkered and dim eyes, whether you believe that that's all you deserve to see, or I don't care why the reason is. All I know is that there's much more than I ever believed there is, and it's really great.
Yeah, I think next week we should call it Falling in Love with Life. I think that would be a beautiful part 2 to this conversation. And I love that, because what you said, because that really points to that. Because we're talking about falling in love with people and love and heartbreak and breakups, but really the essence of this is falling in love with life. Because when we do that, we allow all the experiences. So I think that's something we can really dig into next week and really see. I'm going to finish off, and then I'll hand back over to Jem for the final bits of housekeeping. But I'm going to read the last poem on the last page of my book, and it is: "The path is wild. Do not tame it with thoughts of how it should be. Keep it unkempt and dance along it. Sometimes it will scratch your feet and graze your knees. Its nettles may find your heart and sting it. But you know you will have lived from the scars that you collect and the flowers that you pick, that you wear behind your ears, tucked into golden locks of hair, shining in rays of love and sunlight. And you will not look back, as the untrodden path will call you on, to find treasures that you did not know existed, waiting for you to see them and to notice life's infinite joys once again."
You make
Order the book, Mugsy. You'll be crying for a long time. Seriously, though, I put the link up there, and it is a very beautiful book. It's just one of those ones, well, you can open it on any page and it will kind of give you what you need. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Tonight has been really, really beautiful. Thank you for Mugsy.
Okay, I think maybe we've lost Jem for a moment. So I will carry on. Thank you everyone for being here. Please, we do these spaces, but we turn them into a podcast. And we really would love you to find us, the Unminding Project, on Spotify or Apple or Fountain or whatever app you use. And please go and subscribe. And if you can, rate us and listen to old episodes on there. We really love doing this. We really want to spread the word because we know how helpful it is to have this understanding as in your life, to be able to see this. It's so wonderful to suddenly see that the world isn't fixed, that it's all thought, and that there's a place within you that you're always okay, and that you have the resilience and everything you need to deal with life. And that if we can get this to as many people as possible, that's, Jem and I actually want this to be the #1 mental health or awakening podcast in the world. So we've got a bit of a way to go, so we'll need your help. So please share this spaces. Please join us on the podcast, and we really, really hope that you join us again next week. We love you all very much, and we'd like to thank you for being here tonight. And thank you, Muggsy, for being a great co-host, and for Crypto Yogi, and to Rain for speaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everybody. And Moles and Gems, you guys are always amazing.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, Jem, as well. I don't know what's happened, but
her phone died.
She's okay. She'll be back next week. All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, and goodbye.